Hi there. For many of you, this episode is one of every other episode you've watched. You have watched or listened to every single episode, never missing one, even when you went on vacation. And for some of you, though, this is going to be your first episode listening or one of your first episodes. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Elisa Steele. And according to the left, I should not be here today. So I'm going to tell you that story. And I hope that, if anything, maybe it's some food for thought. Again, I'm your host, Elisa Steele. You're listening to Deconstructing the Culture. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today. It's been a couple weeks since we've chatted because last week we did an interview with Doug Johnson, husband to Abby Johnson, whose movie was made about her life unplanned. So if you haven't listened to that incredible and very interesting, diverse interview, you definitely want to go check that out. Now, today I am going to be totally upfront with you from the beginning. I had something completely different planned for this episode, but yesterday was International Women's Day, which I still argue that if we're going to have an International Women's Day, we need to equally emphasize International Men's Day, but that's an episode for another day. Now, here's the deal. Something that I have thought about for many years is how both sides of the argument, both the pro-life and the pro-abortion side, both use the tags pro-woman. And I want to go ahead and talk about what that means, what it means to be pro-woman. Now, before you tune out, stop right there. Trust me, you're going to think, I already know what it means to be pro-woman. I don't even need to hear this, Elisa. But here's the thing. Both sides are equally convinced that they're pro-woman. That's the crazy part. I literally was looking at a post from yesterday, International Women's Day, from Planned Parenthood, and it says on their post on Instagram, repro rights, which stands for reproductive rights, are human rights. And it says hashtag repro rights are human rights. And then they put in the description, everyone has the right to decide if and when to start a family and to make decisions about their own body, because reproductive health is healthcare, and healthcare is a human right. Now, the very first part of that, I can agree with that on face value, that everyone does have a right to decide if and when to start a family, and they also have the right to make decisions about their own body. Now, the difference is they would argue that you can make that decision anytime, any place, at any point, even if that means harming another human being, whereas the pro-life side would say, yes, but once another human body and another human being is involved, then you can no longer make that decision if it means harming or killing another human being. And we would say that your right to choose and make those reproductive decisions is before you have sex, not after you have sex and you've conceived a child. But let's put all that aside. The reason why this hits so close to home to me is I shouldn't be here today. I shouldn't be alive today based on what the left calls pro-woman. So I'm going to tell you that story today. And I'm going to take you back a few years ago, about 25 years ago. And I want to tell you a story about a 16-year-old girl who was born into a less than traditional family. Her father had many wives, about 7, and she is one of 42 siblings. And at 16 years old, she is coerced into marrying someone twice her age. And so shortly after turning 17, she marries a man twice her age, moves to a different country. She was born in the United States. She moves to Mexico because she is marrying a Mexican citizen. And she finds out pretty quickly that she's signing up for a little bit more than maybe what she bargained for. Of course, I don't think any teenager getting married to someone twice their age really knows what they're bargaining for. But she finds out very quickly on into her marriage that her husband is a closet alcoholic and has severe substance abuse issues with alcohol. She also finds out that he is not kind. That's the understatement of the year, but he is not kind. He's abusive emotionally, verbally, and physically. She also finds out that a wife, she can't say no to sex, that she doesn't have the right to say, no, this is my decision. So she learns a few things, but she's trapped. This is all she's ever known, polygamy and this kind of relationship. This is what she knows. She's a teenager. She has vicious, unkind, uncaring sister wives who are also living in this hell with her in Mexico. And just a few months into her marriage, she finds out she's pregnant, and they're not ideal circumstances. Because not only is she living in a third world country, trying to speak a language that isn't hers, trying to learn a second language, and married to an abusive husband, but she's living in utter poverty. And here she is, a teenage bride, about to be a teenage mommy, and she gives birth to her first child in a old, gross camping trailer. That's her home. And this is not a trailer like a trailer home. I've seen some of those. I walked into one of them one time and I thought, wow, this is nicer than the place my husband and I first rented when we were newlyweds. Now, this is a camping trailer where the windows don't close 100%. So when the wind blows, the sand and the dirt and the grime blows into her little trailer home every single day. Not only that, but the trailer is located in what's known as the family dump, where all of the other wives and family members would bring their garbage and burn it. And so you've got cans that haven't burned all of the way. You have diapers that haven't decomposed or burned all the way. She's living in a trailer in a third world country in utter poverty with something like $7 a week as her grocery budget. And that's supposed to cover everything. And she gives birth to her first baby, a little baby girl, in this tiny, gross, old camping trailer with almost no walkway, because camping trailers don't have much in the way of hallways. And she doesn't even have proper medical help. There's no doctor there. She's giving birth in a trailer. There's not even a proper midwife there, just some lady from a little ways over who's been to a few births, so she's qualified. Fast forward, she is utterly feeling completely trapped. This is the only way of life that she's ever known. She's in poverty. She's in pain. She is not being treated well. She is in a very abusive relationship. And she finds she's pregnant again. 19 months after the first baby is born, she has the second baby. And now she doesn't know what to do. Because she's in a situation where in Mexico, the men have control. The men are in power. There's no such thing as women's rights in the way we think of it here in the Western world. And the man has control over the children. If you decide to leave your husband has control of your children. And not only that, but one day, after being beat by her husband, and there are bruises and marks on her body from being physically assaulted, she goes to the Mexican police asking for help, looking for help, desperate for help, and she doesn't know what to do. And the police officer there in Mexico, sitting in his chair, looks at her, takes a a puff from his cigar, blows the smoke in her face, and says, "You belong to your husband. Go home to your husband. You're his." And she is more trapped than ever because when she's been pushed to her max and desperately reaches out for help, she's denied help. She's denied support. So she does what can only be described as and explained as a God thing. Moving on courage that is not hers. Moving on inspiration that is not hers, but's from God. And she knows in her heart that God didn't intend for her to live like this. God didn't intend marriage to look like this. And so, with nothing but 2 babies under the age of 3, 2 duffel bags, and basically nothing else, no car, no job, no support, no husband, she escapes out a basement window with those 2 babies and 2 duffel bags to get away from her abusive environment. From there, it was an incredibly difficult, beyond extreme battle for survival every day to figure it out in the world. And if I haven't made it clear, this woman is my mother, and I am her first baby, her baby girl born to her in a trailer in Mexico, which explains my dual citizenship. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to be here today. In fact, my mom is so fierce that one of my very earliest memories is living in Utah in kind of a not so great neighborhood, but living in Utah and going door to door endlessly. And my brother and I are sitting in a tiny little stroller, and it's cold and it's chilly and miserable. And my mom is pushing us in a stroller from door to door, and in part of the stroller she has stacks of cookies, little cookies that are on little plates covered with colorful saran wrap, and she's selling them from door to door. And when people would ask her, "Hey, what's your cause? What are you raising money for? Why are you selling cookies?" she would tell them with the utmost humility, I'm a single mom and I have 2 babies and I refuse to get on government welfare. So I am doing whatever it takes within reason and morals and ethics to put a roof over my children's head and to provide for them. And that's what she did. And that is the kind of woman that she is. She wasn't looking for a hand out. She just needed a hand up. She worked her butt off to do everything she could for my brother and I. She sacrificed more than a mother should have to. Motherhood is already such an intense sacrifice, but she sacrificed more for us. Because you see, if you think about her story, at face value, it sounds like just this incredible, amazing story of redemption and survival and strength of will, but it's more than that. It's a testament to the value of human life. Because according to the left, I should not be here today. The left says that if you're going to be born into various circumstances, that your life doesn't hold value, and it's not just acceptable, but it's morally the right choice to kill that human being. So for instance, think about just any of the top reasons that you often hear the left pushing as to why abortion should be not just a choice, but a right. The top ones I hear are, actually, here's the thing. The very, very top one that I hear is poverty, which is sad But the top one that I hear is poverty. In fact, I was reading on Twitter one time, this chick posted a tweet of a conversation between her and her dad, and it went something along the lines of, she said, "Dad, is it murder to kill a baby that's going to be born into utter poverty?" And the dad said, "Yeah, but it's also murder to allow that child to be born into utter poverty. One's just a much slower death. So abortion is a more compassionate choice." I'm calling BS on that one. I was born into extreme poverty in a third world country in a little trailer on a local dump trash field. My life still has value. Your life still has value. Chances are half of you were born into families that weren't exactly cushy, that maybe were lacking at times. It didn't make your life any less value or have any less value. Life still has value even if it's going to be born into poverty, and being born into poverty is not the end all of your story. It's not the end of anyone's story. Born into poverty, going into poverty later, the truth is every human being is guaranteed suffering in their life. But just because every one of us will endure some kind of suffering is not a reason to preemptively kill every human being just because they might or will suffer inevitably at some point in their life. Another one I hear very frequently is, like single moms. A woman shouldn't have to raise children as a single mother. Being a single mom, it doesn't change the equation. We were just as human to my mother. For all intents and purposes, being I'm just going to say it like it is, and this is going to offend some people because some of my loved ones still live polygamy, but the truth is it's not, I'm not saying every polygamous situation is like this, but I'm speaking for my own situation. My father had 36 children. There's no way that he can focus and be a great dad figure even without the substance abuse and the verbal or physical abuse towards my mother. You can't be there all the way for your children as a father with that many children and wives and also traveling and being gone. Yes, I had a father in the early stages of my life, but probably there as much as a good uncle. Being a single mother is not a reason. Not having a parent, one of your parents, or even either of your parents is not a reason to kill a human being. Poverty is not a reason to kill a child. Another very, very frequently brought up one is rape. And without going into too much detail, I don't think any human being born into a situation, I'm not saying that I was, but any human being conceived through rape deserves to die. The Bible says, and even if you're not a Christian, it's common sense that a child should not pay for the sins of their father. And two wrongs don't make a right. A man harming a woman or not taking no for an answer doesn't take away the human value of the child that was conceived. It's not their fault. And abuse, substance abuse, physical abuse. Abuse is a very common reason the left uses to say that children should be killed in the womb. A child being born into a less than ideal circumstance does not mean that child has no value. The truth is because my father has struggled with substance abuse and alcohol abuse so much, I don't drink alcohol. And that's a personal decision I have made because that's not something that I want to tempt in my life. And honestly, I feel like I would be this way whether my father struggled with alcohol abuse or not. I choose not to have that substance as a part of my life. But any kind of abuse in the home isn't a reason to kill another human being. Ethnic minorities, let's just talk about this plain and simple fact that in New York, more Black babies are being killed every year than are being born. And I really hesitate to bring this one up, but I'm just going to be totally upfront because it needs to be said in the face of a culture of death and a culture of Planned Parenthood and a culture of abortion. Incest is a reason that's brought up a lot. And this one makes me uncomfortable to talk about to some degree, but it needs to be said, like I mentioned. My mother and my father are first cousins once removed. My biological father is my first cousin twice removed. In 6 states in the United States, I believe, that's considered legally incest. So according to the left, I most definitely should not be here today. Because don't you know, if a child is born into less than ideal circumstances, their life has no value, according to the left. You see, the left is going to tell you on International Women's Day, on any day, I'm going to tell you 365 days a year, they're going to tell you that they're pro-woman, that they are for women. But there are some boxes that you need to fit perfectly in to be considered one of the women that they're pro-women for. You see, if you're a single mom, they're not pro-woman for you if you want to keep your child. If you are a woman having a child in utter poverty, they're not pro-woman for you. If you're a woman being born into utter poverty, they're not pro-woman for you. If you are conceived out of rape or incest, they are definitely not pro-woman for you. You should die, according to the left. If you're being born into domestic abuse or any kind of substance abuse, they're not pro-woman for you. In fact, when it comes to rape, they're going to cover it up. Planned Parenthood has been very documented as systematically covering up abuse, specifically rape and incest. And by systematically, I mean they cover up the crime. They take the victims, hide their ages, hide the abuse, don't report the abuse, and kill the children, hoping to hide and continue covering up for the abuse that's happening. Planned Parenthood is not pro-woman if you're a woman being born into that, or if you're a woman suffering through that. They're pro-woman, but not if you're suffering through abuse. If you're an ethnic minority, like I mentioned, in New York, Planned Parenthood, without this is a whole nother podcast by itself, but its foundings were founded by Margaret Sanger, who is a eugenicist and racist. She founded Planned Parenthood to help eliminate ethnic minorities. I'm an ethnic minority born in Mexico with Mexican citizenship. I'm one of those minorities that the left would like to see, well, Planned Parenthood historically would like to see eliminated. Planned Parenthood will say that they're pro-woman, except if you're an adoptive or foster mom, if you want to take in those babies instead of see them killed, they're not pro-woman for you. Planned Parenthood will say that they're pro-woman, but not if you have an extra chromosome, if you are Down syndrome or have special needs. Planned Parenthood is, oh yeah, they're pro-woman, but if you have any kind of special needs, we should kill you. Because they're pro-woman for you, except if you have those special needs. Planned Parenthood will say that they're pro-woman, but they are completely anti-women for the women standing outside of their Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, praying in front, offering help, real help, to the women going to abortion clinics. If you're praying outside of Planned Parenthood to help women, no, they're not pro-woman for you. Planned Parenthood and the left will say that they're pro-woman, but what about the millions of women being slaughtered in the womb every year? They're not pro-women for those women. And the truth is, they're not pro-women for all the women who have suffered miscarriages. And you know that this hits really close to home for me because my husband and I miscarried our first baby late in 2019. Because the truth is if one 11-week-old child in the womb is a person and loved and a child being miscarried and desperately working to save that baby, if it's a person on one side of a hospital wing but a choice to be killed on the other side, Planned Parenthood's not really pro-woman. Because by calling all children a choice, by calling human beings and their lives a choice to be taken, to be flippantly killed, they are dishonoring our children that are loved and we didn't get to hold here on earth, that broke our hearts when we lost them. Planned Parenthood's not, they're not really pro-woman. If you can have that many exceptions as to why we're pro-woman, except if you fall into any of these categories, you're not really pro-woman. To be really pro-woman means to be pro-life. People sometimes ask me, Lisa, why are you pro-life? And the simplest answer I can ever give them is because I am pro-woman. Because of my mother's sacrifices, because of my mother's courage, because of her faith in God, because of her determination to protect her children, even when it came at a cost to her. Because my mother wasn't a woman of the left, I am here today. To me, that's everything. My mom is pro-woman, and I'm living proof of that. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you've been at all touched or inspired in any way by my story, I would ask that you please share. God bless you. God bless America. Hey there, so you're at the end of the podcast, and I'm going to ask you to please, if you haven't already, subscribe and leave a review. And if you've already done those two things and you're like, Lisa, I hear you say that every week, and I've already done that, what else do you want me to do? This is the time I would like to tell you what else I'd like you to do. No, I'm being serious though. Please share this with a friend, with a like-minded friend, or maybe a friend who doesn't know much about the pro-life movement or doesn't know much about the conservative movement. Maybe as an introduction, maybe to someone who is a tried and true conservative who you just feel like our personalities might resonate. Who knows? But I'm asking you to please take that next step and go ahead and share this with a friend or two or a dozen. I don't care. Actually, maybe 30, however you want. You be generous. You decide. All right. Thanks. Bye.